It's here. We can see the banana.
Yeah. Eat your heart out.
Will the meeting of Planning and Zoning Commission for Wednesday, February 1st, 2023, please come to order? This evening's meeting will be a virtual planning and zoning meeting hosted by Zoom. During this meeting, our procedures will be as follows. 1, when you first enter the Zoom meeting, you'll be in the virtual waiting room until the meeting host admits you. 2, please be aware that your camera, if you have one, and your microphone will be muted by the meeting host when you enter the meeting. You can turn on your camera at any time so you can be seen by others when and if you choose to. In order to run an efficient and orderly meeting in this virtual environment, unless stated otherwise with the meeting chairman, during the meeting host will keep everyone other than the commission members muted. You'll still be able to hear everything said by the commission members, even if you're muted and or your camera's not on. There will be opportunity for public comment during public hearings, at which time public participants will be unmuted. 3, the secretary will read the call of the meeting as published during the Governor Lamont's executive order. 4, during the public hearing, the applicant will be invited to present the application, explaining to the commission and others present what is being requested. The meeting host will share all related documents on the screen as needed. In addition, all applications and supporting materials for each application on the agenda are available through the public meeting calendar page of the town website, www.guilfordct.gov, and also through a direct link on the planning and zoning page. 5, comments of town agencies will be read for each application. If there are any, there will be clarifying questions from the commissioners. 6, there will then be an opportunity for clarifying questions from the audience. Please raise your hand to the Zoom platform and wait to be called on and unmuted. As this public hearing must be recorded, it's necessary for speakers to identify themselves each time they speak by stating their name and address. 7, after all clarifying questions are exhausted, those who wish to speak in support of the application will be asked to come forward, state their name and address for the record, and make a statement. Then those who wish to speak in opposition to the application will be asked to come forward, state their name and address for the record, and make a statement. 8, the applicant will then have an opportunity to address any questions or concerns raised by the public or commissioners. 9, once the public hearing is closed, the applicant is free to leave or remain for the balance of the public hearings and the regular meeting, during which the commission will try to reach a decision on each application. Each applicant will be notified in writing as to the decision of this commission and has a right to appeal to Superior Court if desired. 10, decisions of this meeting are available the day after the meeting by calling the Planning and Zoning Department at 203-453-8039 or by emailing planning.zoning@guilfordct.gov after 9 a.m. 11, all actions taken on applications tonight by the commission will be by roll call. All commissioners and staff will identify themselves for the record before speaking. Seated this evening are the following members who will please identify themselves. Kevin Clark.
Here.
I don't think I saw Bill Freeman. Ted Sands.
Here.
Philip Johnson. Was here. No longer here. Sean Cosgrove.
Here.
Frank DeAndrea.
Hi, here.
And I'm Scott Edmund, chair. I don't think we have either of our alternates here tonight either. Staff president, Jamie Stein, town planner.
Good evening.
Nigel Mills, assistant town planner. And Janique Morgan, our executive assistant.
Very good evening. Yes.
This meeting will be recorded via Zoom platform and made available on the town website for viewing. Do we have a legal notice tonight, Jamie?
Back in 2021.
No, we do not, Scott. This was a continued public hearing item from our January 18th meeting.
All right, thanks. I hear a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Thanks, Ted.
Second.
Second from Frank. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. First item on our agenda is Joyce A. D'Amato, 64 Great.
Do you want? Should I read the notice?
I'm sorry, what?
Read the notice.
No notice this evening, Sean.
There's no notice this evening yet. Joyce A. D'Amato, 46 Great Ledge Drive, map 51, lot 214, zone R5, special permit modification application for an after the fact attached accessory apartment. This is continued from January 18th, 2023. Jamie, have you had any conversations with Attorney Beatty related to your discussions with Chuck Andrews?
Yes, I have. I have had discussions with Attorney Beatty. I have also shared a draft motion with Attorney Beatty.
Attorney Beatty, do you have anything that you would like to discuss?
No, I've reviewed the draft motion that Ms. Stein sent to me. It's fine from my perspective, and hopefully it's fine from the commission's perspective as well.
Commissioners, any questions related to this application?
I just have one comment. I thought Bill Freeman would be here. I'm hoping that Phil will join again. But I thought this would be a little bit more specific and explicit about a actual building inspection.
So it's basically what we're saying is that it needs to comply with the building code. It currently does not, if it's going to be an ADU. And therefore, as a stipulation for approval, the house or the area as an ADU would have to be made compliant with the building code.
Would that not
per
would that
Jamie's
not
discussion,
require an inspection?
per Jamie's discussion with Chuck Andrews, we couldn't necessarily stipulate how they become compliant with the building code. As you saw from the building inspector's memo, there was 3 ways that she laid out that she thought they could become compliant. And if you remember, most of those involved her inspecting somehow, or a third party inspecting, or they apply for a building code, which require her to inspect as well. But we don't, per Chuck Andrews' advice, we can't really stipulate exactly how they apply to zoning code. I mean, to the building code.
So we're kicking the can down the road to the building inspector.
Well, we're not stepping on the building inspector's toes, technically. I'll let Phil jump back in here too. Hi, Phil.
Hi, sorry, blue screen of death.
No problem. So Sean asked a question about why it is that we're not being more specific about what the requirements are related to building code in the case of D'Amato. I explained that through Jamie's talks with Chuck Andrews, we're simply just requiring that the space become compliant with the zoning code, with the building code. And that we're not being, Chuck advised us to not be specific about how they become compliant with the building code, simply that they must.
So can I play devil's advocate and just ask a question?
Yep.
So we approve this with this condition, and then nothing happens afterwards.
Then they would be in default of zoning code and would be
But who's going to follow up on that?
the zoning enforcement officer.
Nigel? Nigel, are you gonna go in there and say, hey, you have to have GFI plugs next to the sink. You have to.
I
No.
don't have.
They simply would not be able to have an ADU.
But if they run it
They would be
anyway,
they would be in violation of the permit allowing them to do ADU, so therefore they would not be allowed to have the ADU.
Would they have a certificate of occupancy?
No, I mean, they would need one in order to satisfy the condition that we put in our approval here.
but do we have the authority to, and to ask for a building permit?
We're asking them. I mean, one of the ways that they can comply with the stipulation we put in there is to get a building permit. That's one of the ways they could comply with the stipulation.
I mean, I'm trying to find a way to get them to, yes, to get them to the point you know, I want this process to end up with a compliant unit that's safe according to our current standards. I appreciate this was done 30 years ago and it's been in existence for 30 years, but that doesn't kind of excuse the fact that it's been.
But I think, and I haven't spoken with Attorney Andres directly on this, but I think the issue is that this commission is limited in terms of the conditions it can attach that are reliant on another agency following out following its regulations or conducting additional steps. And the reason for that is because it puts a condition on the approval that the applicant may or may not be able to satisfy or appeal and have a court say, well, yeah, you should be able to do this or shouldn't be able to do this. The Planning and Zoning Commission is kind of bound by its regulations to say whether or not the proposed application satisfies the criteria within your regulations. And with regard to the accessory dwelling unit, those typically relate to size, location, access, square footage, all those things.
So we could say yes, or we could say no.
Well, yeah, that's true. But if we satisfy the conditions of the regulations, then you'd have to give a reason why you denied it based on those criteria.
Well, if we said we denied it based on the fact that it was never
Compliant.
applied for,
Right.
and it was never inspected, and you know,
But the
the whole
inspection,
point.
but the inspection isn't part of your conditions.
I hear you. I'm just saying.
And we satisfy,
We have a yes or a no alternative.
but well,
No, we
not
can
necessarily, because
say yes.
you can't
with
say
the
no if
condition.
we satisfy the zoning requirement.
Ted, I don't think we can put, according to what Jeff is saying, we can't put conditions on a yes. Because there's no,
Yes, we can. We can say that they have to comply with the building code.
so what is the enforcement mechanism then, Ted?
Well, they can't get the certificate of occupancy unless they have satisfied our conditions.
I mean, I think, Phil, just to put an example before the commission, you know, it's not that we would proactively be going to the house and checking to see if they were renting it or, you know, cooking in it or whatever the criteria is. But if a complaint were to come in, there would be nothing that the owner could
It's been 30 years. It's been 30 years without
A complaint would be.
I mean, I mean,
Complaint would be a fire.
no, a complaint, it's been 30 years, I mean, give or take, Jeff, right?
Right.
So it's been 30 years, give or take, without a complaint. I mean,
I guess, Jamie, the question related to the stipulation that we presented as possible in this here is, how does the applicant, or how do we as a commission become informed that the applicant has complied with the building code? Like, how do we get informed of that?
Okay, so perhaps I can use a different example. That's
basically what these guys are asking now.
I know, I understand. Let's take an accessory dwelling unit that is being proposed and is not yet built.
Right.
The
Yeah.
commission's purview and distinction stops at your ruling as to whether or not this can be an accessory dwelling unit as Attorney Beatty put forth. So we don't follow up afterwards to see how the building, the zoning department will review a building permit, but we're not going into that structure. That is now the building official side of things. So if you look at it.
So what is the-
so why
is the building-
why should we sidetrack that process because someone has not done it compliantly?
I'm arguing that we're not sidetracking it. We're making the condition that this accessory dwelling unit is approved and it must meet all regulatory requirements, including but not limited to the building code.
And so who's gonna follow up on that? Because there's no process in place for the building official to go out.
Well, what is the building official, what's the official process for the building official if they find out that a house does not have a compliant, is not compliant one to the building code?
They don't give them a CO.
Well, yeah, sure.
Well,
On the
there's a
front
CO
end.
on the house.
Sure, on the front end, but on the back end is what I'm
No,
saying.
there's a CO on
I
the
mean,
house. There's
so,
there's no
Phil,
like
for
second
instance,
CO, right?
if someone builds a deck without a building permit, what happens? Somebody calls it in, the building official has to go and say, hey, you don't have a permit for this deck, you have to tear it down, right? Is that, I think that's the process. I guess I don't know off the top of my head.
That has happened before.
So
I think
that's what I would assume would be similar in this case. If there was if the space is not rated to be an ADU, then a complaint could be made and the building officer could inspect.
And so
how
if no
really how that
complaint is
process
made,
goes.
if no complaint is made, then it becomes approved.
Well, I mean, could you argue that our stipulation here is a complaint?
I don't know.
Or at least I don't know. I mean, how does,
So bottom line is, why don't we ask them to take out a building permit and make it compliant?
Because I don't think you have the authority to do that.
Okay, that's fair.
So
they're asking,
it's
they're
basically
asking for, go ahead.
it's basically a loophole.
It's not a loophole. It's the way that the regulations are, it's the way that the courts have interpreted the authority of zoning commissions to attach conditions on agencies outside of the control of the planning and zoning commission.
So Jeff, our options are either approve it as it is without any knowledge or deny it.
Well, yeah, but
No,
you have to
there's-
deny it. You'd
there's
have to have a reason to deny it though.
Oh,
So,
I think you could deny it based on the fact that it was built without a building permit, that it hasn't been inspected, that is potentially not compliant with the building code. I mean, I think you could have some substantial grounds for denial if you wanted to. I mean,
I mean, the commission can deny it or approve it, true, but I think you have a hard time denying an application when it satisfies the zoning regulations with regard to the requirements of an accessory dwelling unit, and this one does.
of a non-approved
Yeah.
accessory dwelling unit.
But it doesn't say. It says specific criteria about what's required for an accessory dwelling unit, and we satisfy all those.
Okay, well, but none of those have been confirmed.
We gave you a survey, a floor plan that shows you what they were, we satisfied the lot
spaces,
area.
proper
We have the
proper
space. We have-
spaces and everything.
We have all those things.
Yeah, Kevin.
Okay, so for the sake of sounding really naive here, so anybody can feel free to play whack-a-mole with me once I say what I have to say, but at what point do we say as a commission, it's a buyer beware situation? I mean, so any prospective buyer is gonna hire a home inspector, and I would think that any home inspector worth their salt is going to find these issues if there are any, and then relay that to the potential buyer, and then it's gonna be up to the buyer to make a decision whether they want to purchase it or not. I mean, I think we've definitely gone above and beyond trying to do our due diligence and do the right thing for any prospective buyer, but it looks like we're pretty much exhausted anything that we can do.
Except say no.
I don't know if that's,
But again, we,
Well, wait a minute. Can
So
I,
we
can
can-
I ask,
go ahead,
can
Ted.
can I ask a question here? What I don't understand is, if the buyer comes in and says to themselves, all right, I bought this house and I have this apartment in the basement. But do they have a certificate of occupancy for the apartment in the basement?
No, they have it for the whole building.
Right. So anybody who has an
They have a
ADU,
CO
is there always a
building.
certificate of occupancy for that dwelling? I don't think there is there?
No, but there's a CO for the building.
One C of O for the building, correct?
And then they built out the apartment in the basement.
I mean, unless we like did something here that could come back to bite us or make us somehow, financially liable or something like that. I don't really see that there's too much more we can do.
I don't think that this commission, and I understand the concerns, and we attempted to try and satisfy the condition initially, which is why we're back here requesting that it be modified, because for the reasons that you saw in the building department's memo. But this commission isn't making a determination, and I'm not trying to minimize the concerns that have been raised in any way. But this commission isn't saying by approving this special permit that it's safe. You're saying that it complies with your zoning regulations. That's what we're asking you to do. And the motion that was prepared by your attorney attaches a condition that we must comply with all regulatory requirements, which we're agreeable to.
And
What
what
are
does
the
that
regulatory requirements?
mean, Attorney Beatty?
That we've got to do what we can to satisfy them. We not just do what we can, but we've got to satisfy them.
But
the health
what
department or the
does that
building-
mean that you're going to get the apartment inspected?
That's empty.
I don't know what else I can tell you. I mean, that in touching
get-
what Commissioner Clark said a few minutes ago, the house has been inspected not once, but twice. There were earlier buyers who inspected the house and raised this issue, which is why we came before you initially to get the special special permit for the accessory dwelling unit. It's been inspected a second time by the second purchasers who are under contract. So, and both of the second set of buyers are happy want to go forward with this, but we're trying to complete this process because the initial condition that was attached, we couldn't fulfill.
I have a hard time with let's call it illegally constructed accessory dwelling unit to just approve it without going through the legal process.
Well, it's hard because it's a chicken and egg problem, right? So right now, the basement is a legal basement, right? It's a perfectly legal place for them to live and use as a house, right?
Right.
Question. But then when it becomes an ADU, then then there's a difference.
Right.
But so what's your expectation, that they build an ADU and then ask for us, like actually go back and
Well,
ADU and then ask us for the permission for an ADU? Like,
and
it's,
in a perfect world, and we're not in a perfect world, one would apply for the ADU and it would be inspected and approved and we wouldn't have this. But what happened was there was an ADU constructed and now they want to subvert, the whole process of building permits, inspections, etc., because it was already done.
he's not proposing he's
I
gonna
would-
subvert
They-
that.
That's
I
something
would
that
disagree that we're trying to
something
subvert that. We've tried
Well,
to.
I understand that because, the new buyers had nothing to do with.
No.
I
We're
don't-
stipulating that they have to comply
I'll say
with the
that
building
much.
code.
They can always apply for an after the fact building permit. And that's something that's been bugging me about this conversation up to now, is that we're treating demolition of something that's out of compliance, that hasn't received a building permit, that was constructed illegally, as the only option when it very much is not. You go up to our counter, you say, hey, this was constructed, but I need a building permit for it. You pay a $250 after the fact fee, and it's inspected all the same. Now, my question is, at the risk of sounding dumb myself, is this something that we can provide as a condition here? It is not. Okay.
Nope,
We can't provide an after the fact building permit.
we cannot put it as. a
Right,
condition.
right.
Oh,
Well, we can say that they must meet all regulatory requirements, including but not limited to the building code.
But we
But who's gonna
cannot
enforce
force them into applying for it themselves.
Who's
There are
going to
other-
enforce that?
There are
Who's
other
going
town
to-
agencies that would enforce it.
so Phil, so if we
Okay.
were, if we were to deny, like, it seems like you may be suggesting, what wheels would you hope to put forth in motion based on a no?
Honestly, I would say that this is an after the fact application that hasn't been, where there were no building permits applied for. There's been no inspection of the property for safety reasons. I guess those are the two tenets that I would fall on. That
I feel like that would be the same words that would be used in a home inspection.
it's fine, but
And then it's up.
I mean,
But I would argue that those conditions are beyond the scope of your regulations.
I
I
agree.
guess, I guess the Superior Court would decide that, but
Yeah, well, I'm sure Attorney Andres would counsel you that it's generally not a good idea
but I
to.
mean, so I'll play devil's advocate with you, Jeff. Why wouldn't I just go down this road and just build whatever I want? And then throw this back out as, well, I want this, but I don't, but I never got approval. I mean, there's a whole reason why we have this commission for, and we enforce regulation.
And that is a precedence I would be worried about. Absolutely.
Again, Jamie, wouldn't that be the responsibility of the building department to?
I mean, yeah, I
Enforce.
mean, again, I'm just gonna go back to, I mean, I get the argument that it's after the fact, but I'm just gonna go back to, we as a commission, look at the use, look at the things that Attorney Beatty had mentioned, is it a space where people can cook? Is it attached? Does it have a separate entrance? Does it meet, health code, whatever? We don't follow it through to, the building code part, but
I'm sorry, does it meet all those requirements?
It does.
How does it meet the health code? Have you had it inspected?
We got a
Health department
B100,
provided a memo.
right, we got a B100A from the health department saying that the septic system is of a sufficient capacity to handle the accessory dwelling unit.
I mean,
We can, obviously, we don't have to vote on this tonight. We can bring in Chuck to talk to us. We can, I don't know, Jamie, is it worth having a discussion or having the building inspector, building department representative come on here? And discuss?
No, because she wrote a memo that was very clear.
Right.
I diligently pursued her the day after our first, kind of ruling on this with
No,
the
but-
condition that, hold on, just 1 minute, just that, the condition was, our original condition was approved as long as a building inspector could go in and ensure safety or safety compliance, something like that.
Yeah.
And she said, Jamie, I can't do that. And so she wrote that memo to say, here's what I can do. And so that memo is meant to serve as advice to both, the applicant as well as to the commission about how the building department would address this. So in consultation with Attorney Andres, we crafted the motion that is in front of you. And the motion tries to, point to the building official's memo, but also doesn't give a specific act. Like, you know, the building inspector goes in there and inspects for safety. So, you know, I think we're
My
just,
question, I guess my question is what's the process that the building department has to follow on buildings that are not in compliance? But I guess that's what I mean more. But I guess you think about it in terms of like my house.
We're passing the buck.
For
We're
in
saying,
terms of whether or not whether or not it meets the building code, yes, we are.
But
That's not our responsibility.
But it's not our job to do that, so.
I think you have that in any application that comes.
And
before you.
I mean, honestly, it's one of those things where like my house was built 40, 50 years ago. It probably does not meet code right now, but nobody's going to be calling the building department and telling them that my house is not in compliance and they need to come inspect it.
but you're also not applying for the ADU to be, you know, certified as acceptable.
Yeah.
When in theory, the process should have been done quite differently when it was done.
I'm not arguing that they should have come and requested the permit ahead of doing it, but I am arguing is that what's being presented and what your commission is charged with is, does what's being proposed comply with the zoning regulations?
Right.
We're not opining as to its safety.
We're not allowed to be an arbiter of whether or not something was built to code or not. Is effectively.
Can we, so Jamie, Scott, can we ask them to apply for a building permit?
No.
No, okay. So so I'm gonna throw this back out there. If we say no, their option is to request a building permit and then have that premises inspected for compliance with zoning code. And
No, I don't think that's what, that would be one option. The other option is they would appeal to Superior Court
right,
and say there wasn't a grounds for the commission to turn this down, and we'll see what the court says.
and that's another option. I'm not sure that we would, frankly, I think it'd be a lot more cost effective for the client to just apply for a building permit and then get it inspected, whatever that means.
But that's their choice.
That's their choice.
And maybe Jeff wants to go to Superior Court.
Well, Jeff always wants to go to Superior Court.
I've got bills to pay like the rest of you, but that's, but I also don't like to see the Planning and Zoning Commission going down a path that's not the right path to go down, when they've been advised by their counsel what the right path is. Not me. I'm not giving.
And the right path, according to counsel, is to just approve,
with the condition that we have to comply with all regulatory requirements, including but not limited to the building code.
Well, why is the phrase "but not limited to"?
Because I think they wanted to make sure that the building code was referenced in the motion.
it also would refer to the health department.
It would,
The zoning regulation.
any codes.
I gotta tell you, this one doesn't feel right to me, but you know, that's me.
Couldn't tell, Phil.
I know, sorry. And you know, for the record, Jeff and I are very good friends.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it comes down to it too, Phil. I hear your point, but is this particular issue on this particular application something you really want to go to the mat for?
well, let me give you a brief history. Like my after the fact baptism on planning and zoning was for an application where an applicant came before us and said, we would like to, you know, redo this building. and it was in a flood zone, and I was very, very adamant, like, you do know what you're doing, you know, it's in a VE flood zone. If you go excess of 50% of the value, and they were very, very cagey. And then after the fact, I found out it had already been done. And you know, it really, that was part of the reason, probably the majority of the reason why we now have a two meeting special permit requirement, because stuff tends to come in after the fact. But I would rather, I would lean more toward the side of being conservative and on a safety standpoint. But that's me, and I am but one vote.
Great.
I thought the second thing was because of propane, but that's.
No, the propane thing was different. That was like propane floating around and
All right, all right.
I'm fully in favor of propane. I want the tanks to be secured when they're in the flood zone, but that's a different issue. That was a different application.
Is there any other questions from commissioners related to this application? Any questions from the audience related to this application? Would any of the audience like to speak in favor of this application?
Good evening. This is Matt Healy from Page Staff Compass. I'm the listing agent for Joyce D'Amato at 46 Gray Ledge Drive. I know Jeff mentioned it earlier this evening, but I'd just like to reiterate the fact that the home has been inspected twice by certified and licensed inspection two inspectors. The items that were found in the house to be either in need of repair or unsafe were addressed. The seller did put on a new roof and a new septic system. I'd also just like to point out that the lower level that was finished, the square footage, the full bathroom, the 2 bedrooms have been on the field card since 1985. So the town does recognize that it's there. The sellers have paid taxes on that for nearly 40 years. And again, I respect and understand the commission's concern for safety, but it has been inspected twice, and any safety issues or items that were in need of repair were addressed by the seller. So outside of that, I'm not sure what else she could do. So just here to speak on her behalf, and I know she's eager to move on with this after the loss of her husband in the last couple months. So I do hope the board does approve this evening. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone that would want to speak in opposition to this application? All right, entertain a motion to close the public hearing on this
So
item.
moved.
Thank you, Frank. Go to your second.
Second.
Thanks, Kevin. Kevin Clark,
Yes.
Ted Sands,
Yes.
Philip Johnson.
No.
You don't want to close the public hearing?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
Showing my cards early, huh?
I was just gonna say that.
Sean Cosgrove,
Aye,
thanks, Andrea.
Yes.
that's just reflexive, you know.
I will also vote yes. We will attempt to make a decision this evening. Thanks, Attorney Beatty. That so ends the public hearing. We'll move into deliberation of public hearing items. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'd make it if you could put it up.
Sure.
I'll make the motion. I've got it in front of me.
Thank you, Ted.
That I move that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a special permit to render compliant an existing attached accessory apartment at 46 Gray Ledge Drive, map 51, lot 214, zone R-5. Approved drawings include existing floor plan drawing by Rise Virtual Media provided with the special permit application dated November 11, 2022. This application is approved with the following conditions. 1, the applicant must comply with all regulatory requirements, including but not limited to the building code. 2, the applicant shall file with the town clerk an original copy of the special permit approval, to be provided by the Planning and Zoning Department, and shall furnish written evidence to the Planning and Zoning Department that the document has been so recorded. This application is approved based upon a finding that it conforms with the Guilford zoning regulation 273-19 apartment accessory to single family dwelling. This approval shall be effective 15 days after publication of legal notice of decision.
Thank you, Kevin. Discussion.
We had a lot of discussion.
I guess the only real item to discuss is do we feel like we need to talk to Chuck Andrews in person? I mean, basically, as we heard from Jamie from their discussions, that's where the stipulation came from, was from by suggestion of Chuck Andrews.
Yeah, I frankly, it would be nice if Chuck were here, just so we could ask him, what do you mean by this, Chuck? Like, what are the next steps? What is the compliance requirements for the applicant, as opposed to just us approving it and saying, okay, just make sure it complies.
Yeah, so my, I would just in a way echo Phil's point, which is that I think we can assume that there are probably many other ADUs, whether they're technically considered that right now, but if someone wants to sell their home where they've had an ADU that has never been brought before the Planning and Zoning Commission, are they going to come forward? And are they going to find themselves in a situation where the realtor, maybe a Matt Healy, discovers that there's an ADU and he realizes that he's got to come before Planning and Zoning again? With the precedent that we're setting, if Chuck is telling us is correct, they've got a glide path. They can just, do the same thing that this applicant is doing. Whether it was done 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20, 30, 40 years ago. So, I'm not comfortable with this. I would like Chuck to come before us and tell us why this is the right way to go. Because if we set a precedent, we're opening ourselves up.
I'll follow up on Sean's comment. Like, if this is how we're going to do it, why would you bother coming before to actually ask permission to do anything? Like, ask for a special permit, just build it out and like wait for your house to go on the market and then come back and beg forgiveness.
Right.
You'd be in violation of the zoning.
Yeah, whatever.
And you'd be in violation of the building code as well.
Yeah, but they've gotten away with 30 years, so.
Again, that's not our, Chuck Andrews, that's not our responsibility to be arbiters of the building code.
But we don't have to like look at this and say, no, you don't have to comply.
I mean, then everybody read the stipulations required for a special permit to grant an ADU then, and if you can.
Okay, well, throw it up.
Other commissioners, do you feel like we should bring in Chuck Andrews to discuss this in the next meeting? What do you want to do?
I do not. I think that Jamie and Chuck, our counsel, who we listen to all the time, spoke in detail about this. It was crafted with a lot of thought. I'm going to take Jamie and Chuck's word on that.
I agree.
Yeah, I usually like to hear as much input from anybody as possible, especially counsel. But in this particular situation, yeah, I think the due diligence was put into this, and I don't think Chuck's going to bring anything new to the conversation. That's the thing. So I'm good with not having Chuck come to the meeting.
All right. We have a motion. We have a second. We've done discussion. We'll do the vote. Kevin Clark.
With all due respect to Phil's and understanding of Phil and Sean's position, I'm going to vote yes.
Ted Sands.
I'll vote yes.
Bill Johnson.
No.
Sean Cosgrove.
Abstain.
I do that too.
Frank DeAndrea.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Let's see, continue the regular meeting. We have George B. Spencer coming up December 21st. We have JP Morgan Chase coming up February 15th, December 21st. It was received. We don't have a date for it yet, though.
I
Amy?
think, Scott, I do believe that the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission will hear and render a decision at their February 8th meeting. So I anticipate that the George P. Spencer subdivision will come before us on the 15th.
Okay.
Kevin, is that right?
I'm sorry.
Our liaison, Kevin.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure that was directed at me. I don't see any reason why that's going to be. I mean, I'm just one person, my opinion, but I don't see any reason why that's going to be held up any longer than next week's meeting.
Okay.
Pretty
Thank you.
straightforward. Yep.
Thank you.
We have JP Morgan Chase coming up on the 15th. We have Guilford Realty Partners coming up on the 15th. And we have a new application, Town of Guilford, Jacobs Beach, 140 Seaside Avenue, map 24, lot 6, zone R3, coastal site plan application for 2 kayak racks at Jacobs Beach. Receive and set public hearing for February 15th, 2023. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 See, we got everybody except for Phil abstains. All right, other business approval of the minutes. Was anyone able to review our minutes from January 18th, 2023?
Substantially correct.
Substantially correct.
Anyone like to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thanks, Sean.
Second.
Thank you, Frank. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Right, Jamie, what else do we have?
Bill's back.
Sorry. Had a little man's room visit.
You're fine.
That's all that I have. Just to reiterate that we're working on holding an in-person public information meeting. Apologies in advance, Frank, it will be on Thursday, February 23rd. I know that Frank has a commitment on Thursdays. So, you know, I'm gearing up to leave some printed material in the community center, like in the cafeteria area, in advance of that meeting. You know, our office continues to be open to questions, comments, suggestions, external meetings. So I'm looking to have the revised set of regs, so all the comments and suggestions and edits that we've considered will hopefully be added to the regulations, and a new version will be available to the public on February 13th.
Great. That gives them, about a week and a half to review before the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Seeing no other business, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I heard Ted
Second.
first.
Don't all jump in at once.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
8:21. Come on, that's nice.
Bravo. Okay. Thank you.
Like, it's not like the old
Thanks.
days with like the 1:30 in the morning meetings.
But we had